You have a relative who reacts to the world differently than everyone else. Maybe it's your mother, maybe it's an aunt. She gets a rash from foods your other family members eat without a second thought. Her joints swell in weather that doesn't touch anyone else in the room. Everyone assumes it's random. But here is what almost nobody tells you. Her immune system isn't broken, it's inherited, and the war it's fighting didn't start with her. Somewhere in your family's genetic code sits a set of instructions written tens of thousands of years ago. Not for you, not for her. For ancestors facing threats that no longer exist. Your immune system runs on genes called HLA genes. Think of them as ID badges every cell wears, so your defenses can tell you from invader. Paleogeneticist Svante Pääbo, working with colleague Janet Kelso at the Max Planck Institute, found something strange when they sequenced Neanderthal DNA. Modern humans carrying Neanderthal-derived immune genes respond to infections differently than those without them. Why would inheriting Neanderthal DNA matter so much? Because Neanderthals had already spent hundreds of thousands of years adapting to European and Asian pathogens before modern humans arrived. Borrowing their immune genes was like inheriting a map to dangers you'd never personally faced. It gave early humans a shortcut through diseases that could have wiped them out, but strength against one threat has a cost. What was armor 40,000 years ago is now misfiring in a world with almost none of those original threats left. Some of those same ancient immune gene variants, not just from Neanderthals but from across your evolutionary history, are linked to modern autoimmune conditions: lupus, type 1 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis. The trait that once protected an ancestor from disease can now turn a great-great-granddaughter's own immune cells against her joints, her thyroid, her skin. Researchers at the Swedish Twin Registry have spent decades tracking identical twins to measure exactly how much of this is inherited versus environmental. Their data on autoimmune disease shows genetics accounts for a striking share of the risk, sometimes more than half, even when twins grow up in completely different environments, eat different food, and live in different climates. That number should stop you. Half. Half of whether your immune system might one day turn on you was decided before you were born. Not by a virus you caught, not by stress at work, by ancestors you will never meet, defending against enemies that vanished along with them thousands of years ago. And it isn't just Neanderthal ancestry doing this. Certain HLA variants linked to autoimmune disease today are also the same variants that once helped populations survive plague, malaria, and tuberculosis outbreaks that swept through entire regions. The immune system doesn't erase old strategies once the danger passes. It keeps them filed away, ready, sometimes permanently switched on. Why would evolution keep genes with that kind of price tag? Because for most of human history, dying young from infection was the far bigger threat. And evolution doesn't plan for old age. It only cares whether you survive long enough to pass the genes on. A gene that raises autoimmune risk decades later but cuts infection death in childhood isn't a flaw. It's a trade evolution made without asking permission. Geneticist Lars Rönnblom, whose lab has studied immune gene variants tied to lupus, describes these variants less like glitches and more like decisions made under pressure. Decisions that made sense for survival long before autoimmune disease existed as a concept anyone had a name for. So the next time your relative reacts to a food, a season, a stress no one else seems to notice, remember what's actually happening inside her. She isn't malfunctioning. She's carrying orders passed down in genetic code, written for a war that ended millennia ago, orders her body still hasn't gotten the message to stand down from. And if you carry her genes too, some version of that same old war may be sitting quietly inside you as well, waiting for a trigger that may never come, or one that already has. You have a relative who reacts to the world differently than everyone else. Now you know why. It was never really her war, it was always yours too.